Welcome back to the Chosen Journey. I'm the chosen lawyer with my co-pilot, Big Money Grip. When he walks the street of Europe, they call him Stefan Carsey, but in North America, we know him as Steve Carsey. Steve, welcome back.
Good to be back. How you doing, Jonathan?
I'm doing excellent. My eyes are a little bloodshot from yoga, so this was not a night of drinking. This was an afternoon of yoga. So it was very hot in the yoga room, but I'm very zen now, and I'm ready because we're gonna have some big weeks. A lot of stuff going on in the world of baseball. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's they call it the hot stove for a reason, and things are starting to transpire a little bit here, and we're seeing some record contracts, and we're seeing some guys signed for some serious long-term deals and long-term money.
Well, we're gonna get into those over the next couple of weeks because today, as always, Steve doesn't really know what we're gonna go with. It's always a surprise week to week. So first of all, our good friend, Mr. Jimmy Morris, out with pneumonia. He is on the recuperation table, so he will be back soon. And he's very excited in the new year to join us to talk about his story and his journey. And Steve, you feeling better? You were a little under the weather as well. A lot of stuff going on right now for people health wise.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that time of the year, whether it's in Canada or in the United States, you got a little bit of a flu bug going around. It's a little chillier here in Arizona, probably not quite as cold as the Canadian frost is, but we dip down into the 30s and it's right around the holidays and always things going on. So under the weather for a few days, a little rest and recuperation, recovery, and just back to letting the wheel work again. So here we are.
Just put in perspective, today it is a +1 balmy in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, Celsius. So we had a heavy snowfall followed by a heavy rain. So the rain packed in the snow real nice. So when you want to shovel, you're shoveling blocks of ice. So my shoulders are feeling it right now. I don't know why I'm not in Arizona or somewhere balmy, but I think it's because we got so much Blue Jay fever going on here, and we're gonna get to them in a moment. Gotta ask you, it's funny, we jumped the topic to topic. Before we get to today's topic, I gotta ask you, does anybody call you Stefan?
No, that was just my given name. My father was from Hungary and brought that name across the pond with him, a long way across the pond. But yeah, no, it's a given name throughout the family, and I just go by Steve.
And in school, you were always Steve?
Always Steve in school as well.
So from the time literally you could talk, you're like, nope, I'm Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's just what they called me. So they didn't have to call me Stefan. I'm not sure how that would have went around the neighborhood, but I probably would have been able to handle myself.
Do you ever watch the show Family Matters back in the day? Do you recall it?
I have come across it. Yes,
Yes, you remember Mr. Urkel?
yes, I do.
Yes, and not anything as far as the thing wrong with the name Steve, but when he all of a sudden took his potion and he became Suave, he became Stefan. So every time I hear the name Stefan, I think of Stefan Urkel. So Stefan Carsey. So we ever go to Europe for a trip for taping the Chosen Journey, maybe you want to consider Stefan then.
Well, there we go. And how I ended up just understanding Stefan was Stefan Edberg, the famous tennis player.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's kind of when I was watching tennis as a young boy, just on TV, U.S. Open, obviously, in New York and Flushing, New York, not far from where I grew up, and he was playing. That name always came across the television, and it just reminded me of what my name was.
I think Boris Becker just got released, but we won't go into him right now, but we wish him well, obviously. Today, we want to, first of all, wish a big congratulations to the crime dog, Fred McGriff. So it used to be the Veterans Committee. Now it's called the Executive Baseball Committee, where they take assorted people from the world of baseball and they rotate it every whatever period they do that. And they sat down, the 16 of them or separately, and they said, here's a list of people before us who should be going into the Hall of Fame. Only one person got voted into Cooperstown, a perfect 16 for 16, Fred McGriff, as we predicted that he would.
Yeah, absolutely. It's well deserved. I think if you crunch the numbers and look at what he's done over the course of his career when he played, it really matches up to what the upper echelon of players have done to get into the Hall of Fame. A little few homers short of 500, but all in all, a great guy, great player, and well deserved.
19 years, 8,700 something at bats, 441 doubles, 493 home runs, 1550 RBIs, 1,300 walks, 284 average, 377 on base, 509 slug. Beautiful numbers. 5 All-Star games, 3 Silver Sluggers, and his top home run seasons. He had a 34, 36, 35, 35, 37, 34. So very consistent. He wasn't one of those guys that had 60 and then 15, a la Brady Anderson, but he was just Mr. Consistent. I heard a couple interviews with him. He is overjoyed, very humble. Him and his family are still in shock, I think, and in awe of it. From the era, any Fred McGriff stories you can share with us, Steve?
I don't have any Fred McGriff stories, to be quite honest with you. Just playing against them, real gentleman of the game, a real pro, is what we call it, a professional, going about his business, doing what he needs to do. And to be quite honest, didn't play in very high markets, right? I mean, he played in Atlanta, played in Tampa, and was kind of an under the radar type of year to year player who put up fantastic numbers and was, as you said, very consistent in what he did from year to year, and it shows when you put the bulk of his work together over a 19-year career. It comes out to the numbers that you provided to our audience.
And he became almost the afterthought in Toronto because he was traded for Alomar and Carter, who just won them a couple of World Series, and so became a footnote that way. But he ended up winning a World Series of his own, and but he is not the topic of today's discussion. So I had a baseball issue for a while. And just from a baseball sense, now let's take away all the political and personalities and issues that people got into. But when nothing came out bad about anybody, I was very surprised that Ozzie Smith got in as easily as he did, and Omar Vizquel did not. When I looked at the two, those were the ones that I was always stuck on. We're not going to focus on Omar and Ozzie today, but having known both, seen both, throughout your life, would you say Ozzie's in, Omar from a baseball sense would have made sense? I mean, almost identical gold gloves. Omar had a better bat. I don't get it, Steve.
That's a great question. I don't get it either. I think they were very similar players. I have not gone and compared the numbers, overall numbers, that you just laid out on the Fred McGriff, you know, inductee numbers that he got, that they were able to go back and look at. But a lot say that Omar played a little bit past what he probably should have, and that's what added to the numbers. But I say if the guy is able to play 20 plus years in the big leagues, you can't penalize somebody for that aspect of wanting to play and play the game. But yeah, I'm not quite sure where that goes or how that does moving forward. Maybe the committee will take that under consideration and see, in years what will happen. But at the end of the day, Omar Vizquel was a great player in our game for a long, long time. So we'll just have to see where it goes. But you raise very good questions on why Ozzie is and Omar is not.
My argument always was if Omar did some backflips and in This Week in Baseball, he was on the opening screen doing that, I think that would have helped him a lot. Ozzie was very charismatic. He was really out there. Not that Omar wasn't. I mean, I told you I met Omar Vizquel and he's wearing a T-shirt of Omar Vizquel on his shirt, which I thought was amazing. But Ozzie was the Wizard of Oz. I mean, you grew up if you're an '80s child, Ozzie was the shortstop. Like he was the guy. Everybody loved watching him. Defensive wizard. I watched both, being '80s, '90s, 2000. I don't see a difference. Omar was a Hoover out there. He was fantastic. I think at the end of the day, he got into other issues, which I think are going to end up costing him any kind of consideration in the future because that's the way it goes. But I think from a pure baseball standpoint, I see the comparison. So now I gave you the numbers for Fred McGriff, right?
You did.
When I heard Fred McGriff came in, then all of a sudden, Steve, I started feeling, I don't know, my heart started clenching a little bit because I kept thinking, well, now we've opened up Pandora's box. So Fred is in. I have a guy for you that I'm going to tell you is even more worthy than Fred McGriff, and he is not in. Are we ready for this?
I am.
So Fred played 19 years. This gentleman played 17 years. He had 1,500 less at bats than Fred McGriff, in fact. 483 doubles to Fred's 441. 473 home runs. So we're 20 short of Fred, but he played that much less than Fred. Had almost identical RBIs in the 1,500s. 1,100 walks. 280 average to Fred's 284. 383 OBP to Fred's 377. And 546 slug to his 509. 2 All-Star games versus Fred's 3. Both had 3 Silver Slugger awards. And this guy's top home run totals, 38, 44, 41, 39, 42, 38, and 38. Buddy, do you know who I'm talking about?
I can take a guess, and maybe it will pan out. I am going to say Dale Murphy.
Not even close, Steve. Would you like a hint?
No, I would not like a hint. I would
One
just
hint.
like for you to tell me the
One hint.
All right,
hint.
go ahead. Go ahead. One hint.
Okay, as a minor leaguer, you guys shared a camp together. Great guy. I believe he caught you at a couple of points and went on to be a very great slugging first baseman.
Carlos Delgado.
Carlos Delgado. Carlos Delgado. So my feeling now, if I'm a voter, and I got to look at the comparables because you got to look at the comparables. When you're signing free agent contracts, everybody's showing the comparables. Well, this pitcher pitched more innings and got more wins, and this guy got this number, so I should be getting at least those numbers. Fred McGriff is in. I don't see how Carlos Delgado is not in. So today, it's Carlos Delgado is ready for Cooperstown. Steve, we got to get him in there, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, you stack up the numbers and you get one guy in, and what happens if Carlos Delgado has 1,500 more at bats? Will he surpass the numbers that Fred McGriff put in doubles and homers and things like that? I would have to argue that if he did play a couple more years, or had 15 more at bats, he would have. So yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's a valid argument. I think it's something that you said Pandora's box is going to be opened up, and there's going to be a lot of people coming forward and saying, "Hey, listen, this guy's in the Hall of Fame. Why aren't I?" Or if that's something that Carlos even cares about. He's such a humble guy, and he just went about his business. And again, another pro's pro in the game back in the day. And such a good person on top of that. So very deserving as well with the numbers that you just laid out for us.
Again, with these comparables and precedents being set and Pandora's box being open. So I remember Steve being a youngster. The year was 1988 or so, 89, and bumping into Howard Johnson and Greg Jeffries. The Mets were in town for preseason. They actually had spring training at Toronto for some reason. Don't know why they wanted to fly them in March when they could be in Florida. But I bumped into a guy by the name of Ralph Kiner. And, me not playing in the era, did not know who Ralph Kiner was. And he's shaking hands. We're talking, and people are telling me, do you know who that is? That's Ralph Kiner. I go home. I go to my baseball encyclopedia. Oh, my Lord. Ralph Kiner. This man played, I think, only 10 years or so. Every year, 40 home runs plus. He's in Cooperstown. It goes to show you that 500 home run number is a myth. It can be done depending on how long you played. I look at Kiner, I look at Delgado. I'm saying, you know what? We're in the ballpark here. Kirby Puckett's another guy. His career got cut short by injuries, and he made it in. Did not reach any milestones, but just very consistent guy. Puckett's in, Kiner's in, McGriff's in. If I'm Carlos Delgado right now, I'm just gonna go start getting my plaque made up. If they don't want to vote me in, I'm just gonna go post it myself up on Cooperstown. I'm coming on induction ceremony day because this guy should be in. And looking at the votes he got in, Steve, now it's almost embarrassing to think about it, how his voting got cut short because he just was not in the realm of thought at that point. I think now if Carlos Delgado had retired later, coming up on the ballot now as a fresh person after McGriff is in, I think they're going to reconsider him.
I completely agree with you. I think the consideration has to be there. It will be there in the future. And when you stack the numbers, like I said before, and they're very comparable to guys who are in the Hall of Fame, there's a legitimate gripe that some other people should be in as well.
And being around the game long enough and having been around Delgado when he was in the Toronto scene and then moved on to the Mets and the Marlins, never heard a bad thing ever said about him. You know what? People seem to gather a lot of respect in the industry, and guys like playing with him. Any Delgado stories you can share with us in helping us campaign for him at Cooperstown?
Well, I mean, obviously, I've played with him, you know, for quite a few years in the minor leagues, and you watch. He was a year younger than I was, so you watch him play at such a young age and um, understand what kind of a talent he was. There's no reason why he put up those numbers. I mean, it was how it was from the beginning. We roomed together, obviously, for a year in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and it was a lot of fun getting to know him and understanding him. A very quiet guy, very reserved, very professional, goes about his business, wanted to play baseball, and put his heart and soul into it. We in Double A when I was there and got traded. We thought it was one of me, Sean Green, Carlos Delgado, uh, Paul Spoljaric. I mean, there was a whole bunch of guys that we thought could have been traded off that team because we felt that's how good we were as a group. But all in all, not major stories to tell about Carlos except who he was as a person and how he went about his business and how he played the game of baseball.
There's a fun game they talked about on the radio this morning. I was listening to sports radio, and they're saying you take a non-sports fan to any sporting event, and it's called Spot the Superstar. So can they spot the person that really stands out and saying, wow, this person really, really is above the others? Was Carlos that way when he was on the field, when he's up to bat? Would you say that it was obvious that this guy was due for stardom, or did it take a little bit more time with him, in your estimation?
Well, I guess think about it as this. So after Myrtle Beach, I was 18, he was 17. We moved on to the Florida State League, which was high A ball, obviously in the state of Florida, hence the name. And he was 18, I was 19. We were playing in the Florida State League, and I'm going off the top of my head here, but as you know, the Florida State League is compiled of all of the ballparks that spring training is played at when they're there in February for big league teams. So you travel around, and they're not minor league stadiums; they're big league stadiums. The fences are legit, and watching him put a display on, not in BP, but during the season. If I'm remembering off the top of my head, and I know how good you are with numbers and how you'll look it up, but I believe he hit 40 home runs in the Florida State League as an 18-year-old, not pulling, but to all parts of the field. And if that doesn't tell you what kind of a player he was at 18 years old, hitting 40 home runs or thereabout, somewhere in that area, um, you would be able to pick the superstar out on the field at that particular time if you're watching an A-ball game and he's putting the display on that he did.
A measure for me as well. I don't know if you feel this way as well, but whenever somebody comes in and takes a job, very often we think about whose job they took. And sometimes you have a shadow that you have to overcome. And I remember being at John Olerud's first major league game ever. It was against the Minnesota Twins. He pinch hit. It was in August, I believe, of '89, if I'm not mistaken, and if not '90. And Olerud was very beloved. He's part of Wamco, and they won a 2 World Series. But Olerud really was a beloved figure in the city of Toronto Blue Jays fans. And when Delgado came in, he had a shadow to overcome. People were very upset about Olerud being traded. He got traded for Robert Person, if I'm not mistaken, with the Mets. And Olerud still ended up, obviously, had a lengthy career, did well with the Mets there. And once we got one look at Carlos Delgado and he started playing, we did not talk about Olerud that much anymore. Very different players, Olerud flirting with 400 one year, was just a very steady guy, 15 home run guy, but Delgado was a masher. Like, when he connected with the ball, very similar to Mike Stanton on the Yankees. When he connects, sometimes you think the ball's going to obliterate off of his bat. He had that kind of power.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was one of his attributes is being able to hit the ball, you know, far when he hit it. He had a lot of power, especially as a young man. The nickname kind of was man child. Like, he was a child, but in a man's body, and the power he displayed was incredible as a young person. And then obviously, they found a better fit for him at first base than they did behind the plate, and to be quite honest with you, I think playing first base extended his career instead of him catching for such a, would have been for 10, 12 years, maybe if he was a full-time catcher, as opposed to what he ended up playing lengthwise as the years went on and saved his knees.
Imagine Bryce Harper was originally a catcher, and imagine with his injury record, imagine he stayed as catcher. That would have never happened. But well, we wish Carlos well. We congratulate Fred McGriff on his Hall of Fame induction. He's going to be very excited, obviously, when it comes to Cooperstown to see that plaque. And Carlos, we got your back, and we think that you're next, buddy. So we hope the committee thinks of you. And as we sum up today's episode, as we look to next week, Steve, imagine McGriff and Delgado with their numbers over the careers saying, man, if I was putting up these numbers in the year 2022, what kind of money would I be making? Oh boy, Delgado easily 300 million in his sleep at this point.
It's incredible. Like I said, the game is in a good place. I mean, obviously, if the owners are making money, they're going to be paying to put a quality product on the field, and the players are just reaping the rewards, good, bad, or indifferent. That's just where the state of the game is right now, and it's in a good spot. So you're right. I mean, obviously, we can go back and talk about many players, like what would Pedro Martinez, what would Randy Johnson, what would Mike Mussina make? Mike Mussina signed like an $88 million 7-year deal or something when he came over from Baltimore to New York. Like, what does that translate in today's dollars? Is that a 250 to whatever pitcher? I mean, I don't know. Like, but that's kind of how it is right now. And like I said, it's the game is in a great state, and the players are reaping the rewards for the hard work that they put in.
Wasn't that long ago, folks. The Kirby Puckett was the first $3 million guy, and that was a big deal back then. And but on the same token, you could also go buy houses for 50,000 or 100,000. So inflation does that to you. Steve, next week we'll be back, and we're going to be looking at some heavy duty money and free agent signings and seeing how we think about it. So thank you for the insights on Carlos and Fred, and we'll see you back real soon.
Absolutely. See you soon.